So Sikh and Chelik Yudzayin, and it's on Pirkei Avos. The first Sikh Pirkei Avos Pirkei. This week is Pirkei. The Sikh starts like this: in Heintigen Perek, which means the fifth Perek, the sixth Mishnah. Rechen tu is the Tana Asora Dvorim was Nibru Erev Shabbos bin Hashmoshes. The Tana mentions 10 things that were created on Friday, Erev Shabbos, Bein Hashmoshes, in twilight towards Mamish, right before Shabbos, which means that everything else in the world was created before, during the 6 days of creation. And these are 10 things that were created, Mamish, towards the end of Friday, the end of the 6th day of creation, right before Shabbos, Bein Hashmoshes. And the Rebbe doesn't bring the 10, but I'll just mention it. The 10 things are like this. One is the opening of the earth to swallow Kerach, the mouth of the well in the wilderness of the Be'er that they got the water from, that mouth, the mouth of the donkey of Bilam that spoke, the rainbow, the mon, the stick of Moshe Rabbeinu, the shamir worm, which split stones for the Beis Hamikdash, the writing of the second luchas, the inscription on the first luchas, and the luchas. Okay, that's what it says. The Noch bringt the Noch Adeya, then the Mishnah brings another opinion, as of Kivrei Shal Moshe Rabbeinu, the Eilei Shal Avraham Avinu. Also, the burial place of Moshe Rabbeinu, and the ram of Aaron, our father, that he brought when he took Yitzchak to the Akedah. And his Messiah, and then the Mishnah finishes off, the Yesh Emrim, and some say, and refers to it as Yesh Emrim, also Mazikin, Afa Mazikin, which really means, the real translation is the spirits of destruction, but it means the demons, the shadim. Va'af, and also Svas, Vitzvas Asuya, which means that the pliers, the original pliers, the plier is made, at Svas, a plier is made with its plier. Now, what does that mean? We're talking about what was created on Friday very late. So the other things we understand, what does it mean? At the end, the Mishnah says, and the plier is made by a plier. Der Pirush from Tzvaz v'Tzvaz Asuya is the Gemara in Psochim. The meaning of these words and the connection to what we're saying here, that it was created Erev Shabbos bin Hashmoshes. So the Gemara says in Psochim Pshat, at Tzvaz, a plier can gemacht werden wenn man benutzt dabei an Tzvaz. In order to make a plier, you have to use another plier. I guess the way they make it, they use a plier to hold the metal, and then from that they make a plier. So we have a question: who made the first plier? So the answer is: the first plier was made by Hashem. And that first plier that was made by Hashem was made Erev Shabbos, was created Erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes. So when the Mishnah says that there is an opinion, yes, some say that also the mazikin, the shadim were made Erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes. And also a tzvas, by tzvas, a plier was made from a plier, means that the first plier, because you can't have another plier unless you have a first one, that first one was made, created Erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes. So the Rebbe says, davon verstehen, we have to understand, what's the shaykhs from Brias at tzvas from Zman from Erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes? What's the connection between creating the plier to Erev Shabbos, close to Shabbos, ben Hashmoshes? In other words, why was it created Erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes? Why is it not like everything else? But the andere Sachen was werden gerechnet in the Mishnah concerning the other stuff, other things mentioned in the Mishnah that were created at that time. You could ask L'chura there too. Why were after these things created so late on the day, not together with everything else? And the Meforshim explain what is the reason why they were created Erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes. And he says, like they say like this. This is actually taken from the Derech Chaim of the Maral. The Balz ist eine Sache, welche sein nicht in jeder Tebe von den Hebräern, welche seinen beschaffen geworden, since these are all things that are not in the same category of things that were created in the 6th day of creation. The 6 days of creation was created nature, things of nature. These are things not of nature. Nor sie seine Dvorim Nisiim, they're miraculous things. Therefore, they were created in a time very close to Shabbos. Shabbos is the time when we rest, and the Eibishter rested from creating natural things. So being that these are things which are not really nature, so the Taka were not created on Shabbos itself, because the creation finished on Shabbos, before Shabbos. But they were created as close to Shabbos as possible, because Shabbos is a day beyond nature. So these things which are not natural, they're miraculous things, they were created at that time. Oh, but the chidush and tzvaz b'tzvaz asuya is on Inyan TV. But this idea that you had to have a plier created in order to be able to make other pliers, that's a natural thing. Azay is given. Everything else is like that. All animals, all plants are the same way. And in one way, they're even more than this. And I'll explain it in a second. The mitzias from Ashpetidik and Balchaya that Tzemeach, in order to have a second generation, so to speak, of an animal or a plant, muss onkum und safriedig. You must have, because there must be someone before. You have to have that the first one was created by Hashem. And there it's even more, there it's more chidush. Here, it's not that from one plier becomes another plier. One plier is used to make another plier. But by animals, you need the first animal in order, because from that comes the second animal. So there it's even more natural that you have to have a first one. If Avos that tzvaz b'shafim given dafke be'erev Shabbos bein hashmoshes, so why only the plier was created erev Shabbos bein hashmoshes? What's so special about it? It has to create something else. That's a normal thing. That's part of nature. Everything else was like that. The animals were created first by Hashem, and then from that came other animals, plants, and things like that. So what's so special about its plier? Noch mehr mir. The question. There's another question, a stronger question. The Gemara sagt in Sanhedrin, the Gemara tells in Sanhedrin, the reason why Adam Edition was created on Friday, the sixth day of creation, after everything else was created. The answer is that by the time he's created, everything should be ready. So he should be able to sit down to the meal right away, which means that like this, you come, imagine you'd come and then you first have to start preparing the meal. You have to wait. So the best way to do it is whenever the person is supposed to come, prepare everything before. So when he comes, he has everything ready. The same thing here also. Adam Rishon, when he came to the world, he was created. Eibishter wanted everything should be ready for him. Whatever he needs should be ready. That's why everything was created first, so he could come when everything is ready. But now, but based on what we said before, at the Ershtet Tzvaz, based on the Mishnah, that the first plier is B'Shafim Geworden Erev Shabbos Bein Hashmoshes. First plier was created after Adam Rishon. It was created Erev Shabbos, close to Shabbos. Noch Brias Adam Rishon, after Adam Rishon. Kum Tui, so it comes out as is nit given Hakol Muchon. How does we say that everything was ready? Not everything was ready. Well, this was noch nit given Muchon. The plier wasn't there yet. Pliers are there. When David wanted, they should have whatever a person needs, he should have. So it comes out that something was missing. So how could you say he had everything ready? Now, really, you could have the same kasha on all 10. All the 10 things that created Erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes that the Mishnah says, you could also ask the same question. How could you say he had everything ready? Here are things that are not ready. So the Rebbe says that's not a problem. From the other 10 things that were created later after Adam Rishon is not a question at all. See, alles eine gewähnt, was stimmt, was später die Gedeihes. These were things that were going to happen later. Like, give an example, the mouth of the donkey that spoke. That has nothing to do with Adam Rishon. It's not something that's negated to him. These are not things that have to be prepared, ready for Adam Rishon. But the plier is not different than everything else that he needed. That takes in, contains all the creations from Sheshes and Breshis. In other words, one might say, Rebbe doesn't say this, but I'm touching goods. One might say, maybe he didn't need you think the first day, the first few hours, he was straight, he needed a plier. Maybe he didn't need a plier. That's why it wasn't considered, it's no problem. But the thing is, everything else he didn't need. Everything was created before, because everything he was going to use before, as soon as he was created. It means that everything that is possible for a person to need was created already. Because we don't know what he's going to need. Maybe he will need this fast. So other things which are negated to later generations, that's not negated to Adam Rishon. But everything else that he could use, if it comes to it, we're not sure if he'll have to, but everything was ready. So that tzvas is one of those things. This plier is one of those things that in case you need it, he should have had ready. But if we say that it wasn't created till later, then it means other Mishnah did not have everything written. We also have to understand, number one, why, if he wants to tell us that according to this Yeshemrim, to this opinion, the first plier was created Erev Shabbos bin Hashmoshes, why does he say it in such a funny way? That a plier has to come from a plier. Was in the Werte redt sich nicht wegen der Brie von der ersten Tzvas. By the way, these words are not even talking about that first plier, not talking about the first plier. Adarabbe, the Pashtas is meant to später die Tzvas, but sie is also from a friedliche Tzvas. Let's translate the word Tzvas with Tzvas Asuya. A plier is made by a previous plier. So which is the plier that we're talking about? Not the first. We're saying there is a plier, but that's created from before. So it doesn't even start talking about the first plier. Nor from them, drink, but not ruiz. But from that we learn out as God the erste Tzvas and Gimus ana Brie b'Tishamayim. Since in order to make the second plier, you need the first. So who made the first? Must be the Eibishter made it. And for them, was erstellt the Minyan in the Mishnah. And by putting this in the Mishnah, versteht man, we understand that the Mitzvah the Mishnah sagen, as Tzvas geschaffen worden bei der Shabbos bin Hashmoshes. Since it's put in the Mishnah, these words Tzvas b'Tzvas Asuya, puts it in this case what was created there of Shabbos bin Hashmoshes. So that gives us the understanding of the Pshat. That the Pshat is that we're talking about the first Tzvas. But he says it in such a roundabout way. Should have said very clear and very short. When he says who was created out of Shabbos and Moshes, 10 things, comes an opinion and says also the Mazikin, and also it's Vas, also plier. In Gemara Psochim, it says like that. It says that the plier was also because the plier, you always had to have a first plier. But why does our Mishnah here not even say it clear? Mentions the fact that there's a tzvas, and in order to make a tzvas, you have to have a first one. And from that, we understand that we're talking about the first one, and it's at a Shabbat and Shmoshes. Could have said it in short and clear. Another question. From them was the Zelbe Yesh Eimnim seine Meise die zwei Sachen Mazikim and tzvas. Since this opinion, which starts off by the word the Yesh Eimnim, some say these two things together, that he adds Mazikim, the Shedim, and also the tzvas, is verstandig as man the Kudu Mishetefes. Must be that they two have some common denominator. But so the them sein is a beideli, the shita and yechedes and the yeshem and beschaffen geworden by Shabbos and Hashmoshes. That's why, according to this opinion, these two were created out of Shabbos and Hashmoshes. So obviously, these two go together. So must be they have a common thing and something in common. And the question is, what's in common? Emes takes from loshen va'af tzvas chulu, nit vitzvas chulu. Yitake makes a separation. He says, Yeshemrim, some say, also the Mazikin, and also Tzvas b'Tzvas Asuya. He could have said, Yeshemrim, Afa Mazikin v'Hatzvas, or Afa Mazikin v'Tzvas b'Tzvas Asuya. He adds the word v'af. Between the two, he adds the word v'as. And he doesn't say v'Tzvas. By the Friedrich Yeshemrim, the previous Yeshemrim, says, Af Kivrei shel Moshe Rabbeinu ve'ele shel Avram Avinu. Also the grave of Moshe Rabbeinu and the ram of Avram Avinu. So there he doesn't say the word va'af. He doesn't say kevish Moshe va'af elish Avram. Here he does say af mazikin ve'af. Is mashmer mazikin tzvas eine besondere Protein. So it seems like since he makes a separation in mazikin and tzvas, that they are not mamish exactly the same. But still we have to say that they must have something in common. They're not mamish the same because he says af, but still they have something in common. It's like Chitas, Yeshemim is a machir, so Meis is ein Zeh of the Friedrich days. There's something in common that this person who said this opinion, feels that you have to add these two on top of the previous opinion. But these two go together and they must have something in common. So we have to understand, what's the common denominator between the Mazikin, the Shedim, and the Tzvas and the plier? Another question. What's the lesson in Avodas Hashem generally? Certainly, this must be a lesson in Milsa de Chassidus, means in things of Chassidus, which means extra things beyond halacha, because we know that the Gemara says that whatever it says in Pirkei Avos is Milsa de Chassidus. It's not strict halacha; it's more than the halacha. So since this is in Pirkei Avos, there must be some lesson that we take from here. And not stam a lesson like every word is a lesson. specifically Milzah Chedusah. Was we learn Tarus from them as that we learn out from the fact that in order to make one plier, you have to have a plier before, and that which is out of Shabbos. What we take out from that? Now the question you could really ask on the previous things also: what lesson do we take out from those 10 things or the other things that were created out of Shabbos? Not sure. When the Pirkei Avos tells them, must be a lesson. What's the lesson from them? The same question. So Rabbi says no. The other things have a specific connection to Yidden. When we the Meforsha Mishnah like the Meforsha of the Mishnah explain, all these things are for the benefit of Yidden. So it teaches us something. The Eibishter wanted to do everything for our benefit, so that's why he made this ram, and that's why he made the place where Kedach should be swallowed, and all the other things he said. But having a plier, the first plier was created by Hashem, Erev Shabbat Nashmoshe. It's not Dafka to Yidden. Balachas Kama V'Kama to the Aveda for Yidden. Certainly has nothing to do with the Aveda V'Yid to Hashem. So what is the lesson that we take out from this last thing, that the Mazikin and also the Tzvas were created out of Shabbos? And it's all based on the fact that one Tzvas must make another Tzvas. And that's why the first one had to be made out of Shabbos. That must verstehen behagdim the Pirish Pnimi. So to explain this, let's first explain the deeper pshat. In Maimer Chazal now, in the statement that the Chazal said that we mentioned before, as Odom Rishon the Shafim geworden bei Shishi Odom Rishon was created Friday, Nordem was also given Muchen, after everything was ready, Kadesh Yechonis Lasudim Yad, in order that when he, as soon as it's created, he could go to the meal right away. What does that mean? Das meint, dass soll haben als Muchen zu kennen, Ton gleich sein Avede. What that means is everything should be ready. As soon as he comes to the world, everything should be ready, should be able to do his service that he has to do to serve Hashem. Why? Or we know a rule, as kol ma shenivra b'sheish mebreshis tzrichen asiyah. It says in Medrash, Rashi explains it over there. Everything that Hashem created in the 6 days of creation has to be fixed. There's something more than that you have to do. Because the Pasuk says, Ashabora Lekim Lases. Maybe she created in 6 days. Lases to do. What do you mean he created to do? He created it, he did it. So Rashi there says, L'saken, he created that whatever he created, he left for us to fix it, to finish it off, to fix it, to do. Who fixes him? Who continues what David wanted? The person. And that's main the Suda of another mission. So when the Gemara uses the lotion that other mission is created after everything, in order should come ready to the meal. What's his meal? His meal is the Zachem Asagav Hoben Fazain Aveda. He needs everything for his meal, meaning everything for his Aveda. Because Kol Mash Nibur B'Sheish Nebreshis was was created in 6 days that he has to fix. And that's called the meal. And the Rebbe in the order brings here that when we say the word meal or we say eating, if you look in the broader sense, it includes everything a person needs. And obviously serving serving David is definitely a need. So it's included in the meal. So when the Gemara says that other mission was created at the end when everything should be ready for his meal, means everything that he needs to do his Aveda with. So right away there is everything there that he needs for his Aveda. This is the deeper pshat. Now we'll understand more why these 10 things were not created before Adam. Obviously, they were not needed for his meal. Because David created him, he should have everything ready for his meal. This was not important for his meal. And as we explained, what does the meal mean? Serving Hashem. So obviously, these 10 things that the Mishnah says was created out of Shabbat and Hashmoshes are things which is not important for other Medishim to work with. So it wasn't important to be created before. And it's not only other Medishim. Every Yid is similar like other Medishim. Like the Gemara says, Atem Kruyim Adam. Every Yid is called Adam. He's moving as a Gehen Eichni to the Sudas Aveda from Eden Afilo in Shpetedikatei. That these 3 things comes out, these things mentioned that were created out of Shabbat and Hashmoshes are not important, were not important to other Medishim's Aveda. And every Yid is also like Adam, so it's not important for every Yid's Aveda. So from here we see that these things mentioned in the Mishnah are not important for our Aveda. The 10 things mentioned, they're not ready, they're not prepared, so we should be able to work with it. The Aveda is to fix whatever David created in the 6 days. Adam and the Yid B'chal have an Aveda to continue to work with it, to fix it. But these 10 things, there's no Aveda that we have to do. Weil der Eibishter hat sich lechatchila beschaffen als verändigte und fertige Sachen. When David created them, there's nothing to fix. All these things are things which are David made. And as he made it, that's how it is. So since it's not negated to our Aveda, so it's not negated to other magicians Aveda, the Mela, there's no reason for it to be created before other magicians. Which things were created for other magicians? Anything that is important for him, that the second he's created, he should be able to do his Aveda. What's not important is Aveda, it doesn't have to be created earlier. The high time is I said, Nivri Givonim Berev Shabbos Ben Hashmoshes. That's what they were created later. When later? Very close to Shabbos. Bismichas to Shabbos, close to Shabbos. Was demult is there's man from time of Nuchaf and Asiyav Amol. Whatever you have to work with, created before Shabbos. Because that's work. The whole week you work. Shabbos is day of rest, day of pleasure. Shabbos is resting from work. These things are not part of the work. So they were created very close to Shabbos. Not only that there's nothing that you work to. Because Shabbos is day of rest and things which are not important for the Aveda, for work, were created that close. Shabbos, there is an Aveda. But it's not an Aveda of fixing. The Aveda is Hashem. The Shabbos is nicht zum Avarer, Masakans, and Yonah, Elam, the Sheshes, Mebreshis. It's not to fix the things of the world, the things of the nature that Hashem created in the 7 days of the creation. Why? Because Shabbos is Menkodesh Mukdul from Weltsachen. Shabbos, you're separated, you're holy, you're away from worldly matters, from natural things, which is in Yonah Chel, secular things. Now, the Aveda is in Kedusha Gufa. Shabbos, the Aveda is to reach higher and higher in holiness itself. So, Eila Zayin Medarga, to go from level to level. But the Farid Aveda Metechtaimik B'liyama, that's what Shabbos, the Aveda, it says it's from pleasure. If you have to work to fix something, it's a job. It's a hard work. But when you're just going higher and higher, that's a pleasure. So the Aveda Shabbos, B'liyama, is without hard working. It's connected to what it says in Chassidus that Shabbos, Beira Rosa, we know one of the Lamakas Malachas, one of the 39 Malachas that you can't do Beira. Beira means to separate the good from the bad. Shabbos, you're not Mavare. Yeruchni is Beira means you're Mavare. You separate the good from the bad. It's an Aveda of elevating the good, getting rid of the bad and elevating the good. Shabbos, Beira Rosa, Shabbos is Beira. Because Shabbos, we're not working with the world to separate the bad from the good. Shabbos is a separate Aveda. So things which are Negeya to your Aveda, that's in the weekdays. Things which are not negated to your Aveda, that's Shabbos. So that's why these things which are not negated to the Aveda, they were created out of Shabbos in the first place. First of all, they were created after Adam Rishon because it's not important to be before because he doesn't need it for his, so to speak, meal for his Aveda. And when was it created? Very close to Shabbos because it's created close to a time of Menucha. So here we mention things that the reason they were created Erev Shabbos Ben Hashmoshes after Adam Rishon is because they don't need Adam Rishon's Aveda. Now the Rebbe says there's another thing similar in the opposite direction. In the Aveda Piyam Shabbos, the Suda Aveda from the Modem. Just like we said before, that these things of the 10 things created out of Shabbos and Hashmoshes are not part of the meal, so to speak, which we call the Aveda of the Odom. That's why it wasn't created earlier. Because these are things beyond the world. They're not natural things. They're beyond the world. So they don't have to be created first. So the people should fix it because they don't need fixing. Because they're higher than to be fixed. They don't have to be fixed. Same way in the other direction, in the other extreme. Other things which are also not part of the Aveda Sodom. But not for the reason that we said before, the opposite reason. Before we spoke about things which are beyond the creation of the Teva of 6 days. Some things are lower than the Teva of the 6 days. And it's not a regular Aveda that will fix it. What was created early, things that are important for the person to fix them. But these are things that it's not up to you to fix. They're so low that you can't even fix it normally. To fix them, you can't do the Aveda of by Chlala and Aveda V'Yid is to live with his Aveda. Maybe she gave us mitzvahs to live with. And that's the normal Aveda. That while a person is alive, he has to do certain things to fix them, and elevate certain things. These things are the normal Aveda that you do as living thing, just in the regular style of Aveda doesn't work. Nor for Mesiras Nefesh. If you go give up your life for it, you go on Mesiras Nefesh. B'chol ma'itcha means beyond your limitations. Here you have to go beyond your regular limitations of Teva. The other normal, most of the things you fix, the Eibishter gave you a koyach, and we have according to our limitations, the way we are able to fix these things. All these things were created before Adam Rishon, which were not, or those that you don't need is fixing, or those that the regular Aveda, which is what happened, what the Eibishter gave him, is not possible to fix this. You have to have a special Aveda, which means beyond the regular Aveda. So to be created before Adam Rishon, it doesn't work, because Adam Rishon was created, everything that you need to regular fix was created before. But these is not something regular. Und der Fall sein in Eich, die Sachen nicht scheiches zu der Suda Aveda from the modern. So these things are also not shaykhs, the regular Aveda, regular Suda, as we call it in the Gemara, that's a Suda. Just like the other things which are not needed, the Aveda is not needed, these are things that you can't, it's not your regular Aveda. Weil Aveda so wie sie ist, lechatchilo ausgestellt geworden, because the way the Eibishter made that a person has to do Aveda, as Hashem lechatchilo made it, is nanefim for v'chayvem. Say about the that you live with it, live meaning it's normal, and you do it. That's what the Eibishter wanted. And this is not the regular. So the regular Aveda can't affect it. So there's no reason for it to be created dafke before. But yet you have to have a higher type of Aveda, which is not the regular Suda, so to speak, that you give it. It's hinted in the name Odom. But the ACS, Aleph, Dalet, Mem, Weisen, the letters Aleph, Dalet, Mem, show, you do, it says in Chassidus, in different Maimorim, even Tzir Masudr from Odom. That shows the normal Seder of a human being. Aleph, Dalet, Mem are 3 levels, because every human being is made up of 3 levels. The Reish, Guf, Beregel. The head, the body, and the feet. Or Machshove, Dibur, Maisa. What's a person, the way he does? Thought, speech, and action. That's Aveda Misadora. That's the Seder. So Aleph, where Chassidus explains how it is. Aleph is the head, the Dalet is the Guf, the Regel, or Aleph is the Machshove, Dalet is the Dibur, and the Mem is the Maisa. There it fits Mamish, because Dalet is Rosh Hashanah is the first letter of the word Dibur, Mem is of Maisa, and Aleph is Machshove because it's the first thing. And that's the normal Seder of the way David created a person, gave him the Koyach. We said before, there are certain things that you have to go beyond your Teva, which is not the regular Aveda that's given to you. That's called B'chol Ma'etcha. With all your might, what it means, with everything that you have. Ma'ed means very, beyond your Koyches. In Ma'etcha, you have the Ma'ed has the same 3 letters. Mem, Aleph, Dalet. You take the Odom, Aleph, Dalet, Mem, and you change the way it's set up. The linear from Ma'ed, Hecher from Akbol. So here we have, this is not Odom. So Odom, certain things he has to, as an Odom, which is the normal Seder Masud, certain things you have, most of the things that's what it is, created before the Odom, so you should work it. But these things, which are beyond, to do that is beyond being the Odom, it's to be Ma'ed, that's not the normal thing that he was supposed to do. That's something extra that you have to do, and that wasn't created before. And that's what this opinion adds, that what was also created Erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes and Mazikin and Tzvas. Why these? Mazikin is a nitkin Sachen in Belchas is do Atikin of Soda. Comes to this Mazikin, a person can't do anything about it. The person can't fix him. There's nothing he could do to fix him. Aveda of Zay to Masaken sein, to do Aveda to fix him. Zay Metzias of Geschaft mit Adam Chet Odom. So first of all, how did Shaitan become? It says because Adam Rishon sinned. So it's not made in the normal Seder of Aveda. Because if not for the sin, there wouldn't even be shading. So the Chapiro shows that it's not part of a Seder Aveda. When Avidos is Shelel Zayt, and when you do the Aveda, it's not that you have to work with them as shading and be masakin them. The only thing you have to do is get rid of them. Mazikin represents very bad clipper. So you have to get rid of them. So it's not you have a work normally to be masakin them to fix it. Even though the purpose is that you should change these mazikin to good, the Loshen Chazal, like the Chazal say, that Mashiach will come, the Eibishter will destroy the mazikin, that they will not be mazik anymore. That means that what's going to happen is, see the way the Rebbe writes, very interesting. They zainen, nicht mazik, I'm skipping the parentheses for a second. They are not mazik, they're not mazikin, so the kavanah is to make them not mazikin. But the middle, the Rebbe Haksanein, they are there, but they're not mazik. So that's the kavanah. But it doesn't mean that you're doing something, fixing them. You're not fixing them. Usually when we fix something, it's good, but there's something ruined it. There's something bad in it. You got to bring out the good. By them, there's nothing no good to bring out. What are they mazikin? Mazikin is no good. So what do we have to do when we say we have to change them for good? You have to change them to new mitzias. But the mazikin themselves, you cannot work with them. There's no tikkun that you can do to mazikin. There is an aveda, and that comes, as we said before, from Mesiras Nefesh, from Eid, but not a regular way that doesn't do it, even though you have to work with them, but that's a different type of work, which is not included in the regular work that we do al piteva, and therefore it was not created before together with everything. And those are the shaykhs from Bris Amazikin to Erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes. Now we'll understand the connection of creating the Mazikin Dafke Erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes be close to Shabbos. Why? The Mazikin ver Vashafim Amayli Zeh Metzia Zeh Tachlis. Those were the soft and Sapach and Rotei. When the Mazikin were created, there's one thing here: they have to be changed. They have to become normal Mazikin, not to be Mazik. You have to change them completely. There should be no new Metzias. They should be. So if the whole kavana is to change them into new Metzias, when the fathers they agree, Erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes. That's why when were they created? Erev Shabbos, before Shabbos. Because this thing to make them that they should not be who they are completely, they shouldn't be Mazik. That has no place in nature, which is the Sheishas and Mebreshis. So besides that, why it wasn't created before Adam Arish, because there's no need, because it's not part of his normal Aveda. It now, the way the Rebbe explains, it couldn't be created before. Created before would mean that it's part of Sheishas and Mebreshis, part of creation of Teva. They were not created like a regular thing of Teva was created for a person to work with it. They were created for different, to make that they shouldn't exist. But Dafkim said, from Shabbos, it has to have a koyach of Shabbos, was his hecher from the Midas Welt. Shabbos, as we said before, is beyond the limitations of the world, beyond nature. So Shabbos could understand that the Mazikim were created very close to Shabbos. And the Father is the Aveda needs from the Suda Shalodam, and because it's something that is not a natural Aveda. And it only could be done, you could work with it with a special koyach, which is not a normal koyach a person has. That's why it's not part of the Suda. We said before that the Suda of Adam Rishon, that we said everything is prepared for the Suda, means this Aveda. This Aveda that you have to do is not part of the meal of Adam Rishon, of the person Bechlal. The Baldas, the Tikkun for the Mazikin is durch them, but the Adam get Aruis for sein Adam. It can be part of Adam, the Suda of Adam, because as we said before, Adam represents the natural way you fix things. This is not part of what you have to fix. And as we said before, Adam, Aleph Dalet Mem represents the Teva of fixing. It is not part of his natural limitations that he has. That's why it's not part of the Suda. And if it's not part of the Suda, it wasn't created before in order he should have the Suda ready. What is it? Something beyond. And that something beyond needs the Koyach of Shabbos. That's why it was created out of Shabbos, very close to Shabbos. That's one thing. That's we understand what the Mazikin, why they were created according to this opinion out of Shabbos ben Hashmoshes. Them sein and the Yeshemer Mechmesiv comes the opinion and says that also the plier. And how does it say it? Not saying and the plier also. That the plier, in order to have a second plier, you have to have a first plier. And the first plier, who made the first plier? You can't have a plier without a first plier, David in such a roundabout way. Now we'll understand why. Mitzad an ähnlichen Tag bei der Mazikin ist echt fast von die Sachen in Nivra Be'erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes. Because we're going to explain soon that there is something similar in the Sfas business, like the Mazikin, that's why he puts it together that just like the Mazikin were not created earlier, but they're created very close to Shabbos, so too the Sfas. Nor by Sfas as nit azevi by Mazikin, it's similar to Mazikin, but not exactly the same, but the fathers are Medaik Ba'af Sfas. That's why he mentions the word Ba'af in between to show that they're not exactly the same, but nevertheless they have a similarity. What's the similarity from this thing that the plier was created first by Hashem, and then we say it in a roundabout way? The asbara in them is the explanation how it's similar to the Mazikin is hinted or given out in these words, that one sfas, which means one plier, has to be made with another plier. Why? By this expression, that in order to have a second tzvas, the plier, you must have a previous plier. This brings out that the purpose of the creation for the Eshter tzvas, seems like he's telling you, why was there the first tzvas, the first plier created by Hashem? From these words we see, not for its own purpose. It's created by Hashem in order to be able to have the other tzvas. All other creatures from the creation, even those things that you need one first in order to make, like we said before, the animals. In order to make any animals, you have to have a first animal made by Hashem, or the plants. All these things, they themselves had a purpose. They wanted animals, so there's a reason to have animals, so they made animals. So it's not only in order to have more animals, you have to have the first animal. That's also true. But that's not the purpose. The purpose is you want animals, and then this will also bring more animals. But the bria from the erste tzvas, but the creation of the first plier is given by as in it is not given kematore. But these words tell us that when he created the first plier, it's not for its own purpose. That's what it says here. The reason why they made the first tzvas in order to have the second tzvas. As other medicines, why did they first? They should make the second. So here we have an example of something that its whole purpose is for something else. So big deal. So now he wants to say this is the way it's in Gashmis. Anything that's in the world, you have first the same concept in Torah. The inyan for tzvas b'tzvas asuya in Torah is the inyan for hechsher mitzvah. Now, what does this represent? The fact that there is the first thing, and the whole reason it's there is only for a second thing, not for itself, not for its own purpose, is the concept of hechsher mitzvah. Hechsher mitzvah means there are certain things that you do in order to be able to do mitzvah. It's not a mitzvah itself. For instance, you have to make a sukkah. Why you have to make a sukkah? Okay, it says also that's good, it's a mitzvah too. I'm not going to that. But I'm just giving an example. You have to sit in the sukkah on sukkah. If you don't make a sukkah, you have no sukkah to sit in. So you have to make a sukkah. But it's only hechsher mitzvah. It's not a mitzvah itself. The hechsher means preparation. The peulas ha-hechsher is not a mitzvah. When you do this act in order to prepare for the mitzvah, it's not a mitzvah itself. No, bereis an emtsoye durch welche we can come to mekayim zan a mitzvah mit another zach. It's only a means how to get to do the mitzvah with something else. When you chop wood for a sukkah, it's in order to make a sukkah to be able to make the mitzvah in the sukkah. The Gemara gives an example. The Gemara gives an example in the Shabbos that you sometimes have to, you have to cut wood to burn it and to make coal, that with that make hot, that you'll be able to make a metal, so you'll be able to make a knife to do millah. So what's this? Chopping the wood is no mitzvah. It's a preparation to a preparation to a preparation. You chop the wood to be able to make a fire, in order to be able to make the metal, in order to make the knife, in order to do the mitzvah's milah. So there's no purpose in itself. Now, the since this cutting the wood is only a preparation, so it should come out, even if you look at it from the point of view of Torah, that this doesn't become a vessel to holy things. In other words, there's no holiness in it, because there's no mitzvah here. Through doing this act of the hechsher, no hamshocha of godliness comes down. It's not even similar to, we say, let's say a person eats l'shem shemayim. What's try to eat l'shem shemayim? To be healthy. Why does he want to be strong and healthy? To be able to do mitzvahs. That's closer. Eating food in order to be healthy and do mitzvahs is closer between the eating, even though eating is not a mitzvah, closer to the mitzvah than this case. Why? Because when you eat food, the Shem Shemayim, Lavet Hashem b'kerech, so you should have to be able to serve Hashem with the power, the strength you got with this eating. But der chayes from the Michael is mislabish b'tevis haTorah v'tfilah. So when you daven and learn, you say the words of Torah, you're able to say it because of the food that you ate. So actually, the food, eating the food is not a mitzvah, but it's mislabish. It becomes part of the mitzvah because the mitzvah is done through that keach. That you did with the keach of eating. So the eating is part of it. But in the case where you chop the wood, Sehr tachlis fühlt sich nur durch dem, was a zweite Sache wird damit von der Kedusha. When does it come to its tachlis that why you chop the wood? Chopping the wood doesn't become part of the mitzvah of milah. Only this brings to something else, and then you do mitzvah of milah. So the chura here, it's pretty far that the first thing that's done in order to eventually come to the mitzvah seemingly has no kedusha. That's in the word tzvaz b'tzvaz asuya. The word tzvaz b'tzvaz asuya means to tell you that there is a first tzvaz and its purpose is only for something else. And that's hinting to the concept of doing hechsher mitzvah. Now, what is the Mishnah trying to tell us? And da say the Chiddush in the Mishnah af tzvaz b'tzvaz asuya. The Mishnah is telling you that even that tzvaz was created Erev Shabbos. Which tzvaz? The first one. And it's created in such a way that it's not in itself a purpose, it's a purpose only for something else. Means, even the first tzvaz, which was made in order to do something else, to make a second tzvaz. The Eibishter created it. That means that the Eibishter in it. So even though it's something that doesn't have kedusha, you might think it doesn't have kedusha because it's only for the sake of something else finally gets kedusha. Same thing with the tzvaz. Who made it? The Eibishter created it. So it continues. This is something that is clearly the Eibishter made because there is no way you could have a first plier. So it had to be made by the Eibishter. So if you think about it, you can't say what we said before. We thought maybe that there's no kedusha in it, and it's only there for something else. It's only there for something else. And after you used it to make the second tzvaz, is talking tachlis for the mitzvah, so you don't need it anymore. There's no purpose in its keeping it. So obviously it's not like that. It is choshev in itself. The Eibishter made it, so the Eibishter didn't make it just that we don't really need it just to make something else. So that's what the word tzvaz asuya comes, and it's only in this expression that teaches us that this was created by Hashem, and even though it's made only for the second, like we find by a tzvaz, by a plier, it's created first in order to have another one, and it's still created by Hashem. Now, why was this physically that way? We said before that everything starts off in Torah. The reason why it's physically like that, because that's how it's in Torah, which in Torah means, even though through a normal, regular Seder, normal Aveda shall pitam vadas, when you serve Hashem, do normally, the way you understand and the way it's expected from a person regularly, he's like, yeah, if you look at it, even up at Torah, the hechsher mitzvah, the first part that you're doing for the sake of another, of a mitzvah, taka has no importance. But because the Eibishter wants it, for the Eibishter, who wanted it? The Eibishter wanted it. Like you see by the Gashmatik tzvaz, the Eibishter himself made it. What's he's doing them? So in it you have, when you do the preparation, you have the Eibishter in it. In the talking chilik, looking at from that perspective, there is no difference between the mitzvah gufe was imam shechel the kusum hechsher mitzvah, between the mitzvah itself and the hechsher mitzvah. So where do we see the importance of the hechsher mitzvah? Not mitzvah the normal, and I'll use the word that the Rebbe used before. That's the kesher, the normal adam. Normal adam is the avedis misuderes, a regular aveda that you have to serve Hashem, and it's a natural keches that you have, and you serve Hashem. The hechsher mitzvah, looking at it from that perspective, would not mean anything because it's not needed. It's only in order to get someplace else. So we're saying, the tzvaz b'tzvaz asuya means that the Eibishter made it. And when did he make it? We'll see in a second. He made it right before Shabbos. Because we said before, those things that were made right before Shabbos, because the regular Aveda doesn't fit for them. Or you don't need a regular Aveda, or the regular Aveda won't work. So the regular Suda of Adam Edition, which is regular, won't work. This is also this idea of hechsher mitzvah. When do you get the understanding that if it's made for something else, but the Eibishter made it, and it has the same, if you look not from a regular Tevedik approach, you have to look the Shabbosdik approach. And the Farben, each statement, a bittel elens and rotzen elyon. Hechefes ein tam vadas, when a Yid is bottled to the Eibishter. So the Eibishter's rotzen, the Eibishter's will. Beyond the way you look at it normally from your normal Seder, is by me talking of community, was the rotzen elyon besteht. Makes no difference what the Eibishter wants. Even the Hechsher mitzvah was that's l'chura, not what he needs. But if that's the Eibishter told you to do this, not as a mitzvah, it has the same lakus. The Alter Rebbe zog, the Alter Rebbe says, look at the Torah, as afilu ilu mitzvah lach tevetzi. That even the Eibishter would tell us to chop wood. That wouldn't accomplish any yichud, any connection to any bringing down of a lakus. He said, as Mekayim and Zelman Koch, he would do it with the same excitement. In other words, I just want to explain it in a second. Alter Rebbe says that to show how we bottle that if the Eibishter would tell us to chop wood, we would do that too. But the question is, what does that mean? Avad, if he would tell us, it would be a mitzvah. So why would we think that would be less? Just like the Eibishter told us to strap film, we do it. So the Eibishter told us chop wood, that would be the mitzvah. So the Alter Rebbe explains. What he means to say is that if the Eibishter would tell us to chop wood and tell us that after I commanded you to chop wood, it still won't accomplish anything. Just like now, if you chop wood, no, I'm shocher. Guy goes chops wood, no, I'm shocher. And if the Eibishter would tell us, I'm telling you, I want you to chop wood, I'm telling you there's no I'm shocher. We'd say hineni. We say yes, we'll do it. Because if that's what the Eibishter told us, it has the rotzen, so mitzvah the rotzen alien, it's all the same. And that's the same thing by Hechsher mitzvah. Since the Eibishter, it's the rotzen of the Eibishter, the Hechsher mitzvah, which is the first tzvas, which is only made there as the expression. Tzvas b'tzvas asui expresses that the first one is only made for the second. So that's as holy, and it has it's also made by the Eibishter. And when was it made? Erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes. And the farot eich di aveda shaykhet erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes. The aveda of realizing the Hechsher mitzvah, how important the Hechsher mitzvah is, it has a lakus, could only be because of it was created erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes. The Balz is an aveda, but it's hechef an aveda sira. It's an aveda that it's at the normal tzir, normal say that it wouldn't work. You would say it's not special, it's only for something else. So the only way you could realize the truth, and you do it as because the Eibishter wants it really, is because of an Aveda higher than normal. It's higher than the Aveda of Tziyur Adam from the Aveda Mesaderes Canal, und der Fund wird nicht. So therefore, it's created Erev Shabbos, so this inyan of realizing the Hechsher mitzvah is so important, is connected to Shabbos. Und der Fund wird nicht ausschleifen, the gates of Bruim Gashmin. From that came out that the same thing happened by a physical thing, which is the same idea that it's something that was created only for something else. Therefore, the tzvasik was Erev Shabbos ben Hashmoshes. So now, if you just look back, we'll see all the kashas are answered. One kasha was, what's the lesson? Immediately in Pirkei Avos in the special Aveda of Chassidus. A vifos is negeya di saskas von Naiden. Eichen di nyonim is eine nit mehr wie a Hechsher mitzvah. Shows how important it is for a Yid to get involved, even in things. And there are some people, but the mitzvah, but Hechsher mitzvah, that's not really so. We can avoid it because, which means the achona to a mitzvah. And we always know in Chassidus it says that the achona to a mitzvah is very important, and sometimes it says it's even more important than the mitzvah itself. Now, not chas v'sholom to make a mistake and think that you can make a chachana to the mitzvah and then not do the mitzvah, and that's the most important thing. You have to do the mitzvah, but not talking about the accomplishment of the mitzvah, talking about what effect it has on the person. To do the mitzvah comes from a regular teva of Avodas Hashem. The achana of the mitzvah to do in the proper way is from a higher darga, like I said before. That comes from a darga deeper in the nefesh, not because of tavadas. So that shows how important is the achana to the mitzvah. Umay sarab, we always know that we could say certain dinim, certain ideas, certain heroes, but if we have a story that it actually happened, that's the best lesson. Maisa is the Rav. The best Rav, the best Rebbe is the Maisa. And we find the story like that. The Gemara that tells, the Gemara tells us in Ksubas about Metzia, the Gdele Maisa Chia, how Reb Chia did the greatest things, more than anybody, other people who learned. What happened? Azerat Alein, the Gemara tells like this, that what he said was, someone said that if the Torah would be chas v'sholom forgotten, I have a way to bring it back. I will, my seichel, bring it back. So the Chia said, I'm different than you. I am going to make that the Torah shouldn't be forgotten. What am I going to do? And this is what it says he did. He went and he hunted and he caught svoyim, he caught deer. He shechted the deer, gave the meat to poor people, took the skin, made it into parchment. On the parchment, he wrote Chamisha Chumsha Torah, the 5 Chumoshim. Then he went to a city and he gave each one of the children one of the chumash and taught them a chumash. And then he told them to teach each one, whatever it is, he teach the other 5. He did the same thing with writing down on the parchment, Shisha Sidra Mishnah, the 6 sets of Mishnayos. And he did the same thing. He found 6 children, gave each one, told them, he taught him each one his Seder, told him to teach. And doing that more and more and more. So that's how he said, I'm going to make a Torah shouldn't be forgotten. Actually, I forgot one stage. He said, first, I'm going to plant flax. And from the flax, I'm going to make nets. And that's what he did. And from the nets, I'm going to catch the deer, and et cetera, et cetera. So you see here, he himself not only taught the Torah to the children, he himself did all the preparation. Which is a preparation to a preparation to preparation. And all that is a preparation to Melimat Torah. Because allein eingesät flax, he himself went and planted the flax. Ausgewebt Netzen, and from that he weaved nets. Gefangen Hirschen, caught the deer. Gemacht Klav, he himself did all this, it says. Made the parchment. Und geschrieben Chumash Torah for the king and Nirode Chumash Andere. L'chore, that's Tavur, it's not understood. Why did he have to do it himself? He can't übergeben zu einem von seinen Talmidim oder Avodim. Couldn't he give it over one of his Talmidim and one of his servants? As soll sich vernehmen mit die Achonis. That person should make these Achonis. Ausnutzen der Ruf einen, was ist nicht Kayeshev, somebody who's not job is learning Torah. He sat to learn Torah. Why did he give up time from learning and go do this himself? And these are only Achonis. No, mit seinem Bittel Elyon zum Rotzen Elyon, because he was completely bottled, completely to the word of Hashem, is by him dieselbe Messira and Nesine, the same giving himself over, dieselbe called the same excitement in the Inyoni von Hechsher, the Hechsher lo Hechsher in the Mitzvah Lein, in the preparation like in the Mitzvah Lein. And where do we see this? From the fact that Tzvaz Mitzvah Asuya, that the plier is only made for another plier, and that was created by Hashem, Erev Shabbat and Hashmoshes, which this is the Gashmazik Ishtalshalis of the Hechsher Mitzvah, which is only for something else. And the Mishnah says, this Yeshemim says that this was all created by Hashem. Number one, that means it's just the same as the mitzvah. Hashem himself created it. And also, it's a special Aveda, higher Aveda, because it's connected. That's why it wasn't created before Odom, because it wasn't needed, because it's not his normal Aveda to do it. Created afterwards, close to Shabbos, because this comes from what Shabbos represents. Shabbos represents a higher Madrega than Teva. And this is to show us the importance of Hechsher Mitzvah. Okay.